Hey everybody, KMO here. I realize that those of you who only know me from these videos haven't heard from me in a while. I've shot some videos and got bogged down in the editing and basically just abandoned them. My new computer arrived today, not where I am, but at the place where I had it delivered. Again, I can't have anything delivered to where I live because my building is on 24/7 lockdown. I doubt the kind ladies who have been bringing me my packages are going to make a second trip over tonight. They've already brought me something that was shipped to them once today. So I'm hoping to have my new computer tomorrow, and I'm hoping that it is up to the challenge of running Adobe Premiere. My current laptop is just not up to it. And I've tried a couple times to get into DaVinci Resolve, ideally with the hope of one day canceling that $60 monthly payment to Adobe for their suite of software. But the free version doesn't do all the editing, the audio stuff that I need. Because mostly I do podcasts. The video thing is the total sideline. But for those of you, I'm going to plug my other projects. For those of you who only hear my voice when you're watching these videos, I do 2 podcasts. They come out frequently. People who listen to me on podcasts hear my voice all the time. A lot of them, I think, just use it to go to sleep. Not a lot, some. Some I know, listening while going to sleep. And some videos like this one, which are just chatty and not really particularly focused, I put them up as unlisted, and then I post a link to my Patreon page. So folks who are supporting me on Patreon for $1 a month get those as well as other stuff. I also do a weekly comic strip. Read it. So my mom called today. She called about the protesters taking over in Seattle. She'd heard about it through whatever her news outlets are. I think they're mostly Christian outlets. But as I understand it, the right-wing media is making a big deal out of Chaz, or the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Sauger and Crystal talked about it on Rising today, and Sauger said that this neighborhood, this 4-block neighborhood, was in the middle of downtown. No, it's not. It's totally not. When I lived in Seattle, I lived in downtown, and my girlfriend lived on Capitol Hill, and I would sometimes walk from my apartment in downtown Seattle up to her place in Capitol Hill. It was a brisk walk uphill for like half an hour for me in my late 20s. So it's not downtown. It is, when I was there, it was an upscale hipster neighborhood. When I lived in Seattle, it was 96 through, I guess, early 2000 when I moved out to the Olympic Peninsula. But, everything's gone upscale since I was there. But when I was there, there were still a few sort of hipster bohemian neighborhoods where you didn't have to be rich to live there. Capitol Hill had just passed out of that classification. Fremont was still sort of hipstery, and you could live there, if you didn't have a tech job. But now the person that I knew who lived in Fremont lives well south of Seattle. But no, this isn't the middle of downtown. What Crystal and Sauger did on Rising I thought was great. They grabbed some news, some reporting from a local Seattle news, a local Seattle channel's news broadcast about it. So, the newscasters were talking to people who knew what Capitol Hill was, where Capitol Hill is, and, they know the vibe of the neighborhood. It would be a very different story if, say, protesters had occupied and expelled police from the Pike Place Market, which is actually in downtown Seattle. That would be a world of difference from them grabbing, a chunk of Capitol Hill. And they kept stressing people who want to put a positive spin on this, that the people who have claimed this area have started gardening and growing their own food. It's like they've only been there a few days. It takes months to grow a crop of something that you can eat. The idea that they're still going to be occupying the Chaz in 4 or 5 months, or by the end of the growing season so that they can harvest a few tomatoes, extremely unlikely. Very unlikely. But I know some of you absolutely hate any mention of Peter Zeihan as much as I hate that. But I'm going to mention him anyway. His last couple of newsletters were coronavirus, forget his exact wording, but where we are, state of the virus, state of the pandemic. Previous one was for Central America or Latin America, I think he called it. And then today's was for the USA. And he says, because of Memorial Day weekend, everybody had been cooped up for 2 months, and it's like, hey, one day let's just get out and have some fun. And because of all these protests and riots and whatnot, we're going to have, not a fall second wave, but a late June, early July second wave, which is going to panic a lot of people. It's not going to kill that many people, but it's going to panic a lot of people. My mother also mentioned, because she called before I watched Rising this morning, she mentioned the stock market, and I said, the stock market's been, it's been pretty good given the circumstances. And she says, you didn't hear? There's like a 1,200 point drop. I mean, when she told me, I kind of, it wasn't a video call, so I could safely roll my eyes. But a 1,200 point drop, I mean, the Dow was already way overvalued, way beyond 1,200 points overvalued. So we're still crazy inflated. But this is Crystal's line. The stock market is really just a graph of rich people's feelings, how optimistic they're feeling, has almost nothing to do with the reality on the ground for most people. And most people, I own a little bit of stock just because I've been playing around with Webull, and, I don't fancy myself a trader, unless a trader is somebody who, buys a stock and holds it indefinitely. But no, that's an investor. But, I've got a tiny bit of skin in the game, like less skin than, is under my fingernail here. But for most people, they have nothing. No skin in the stock market game. They've got loads of skin in the real economy game. But until today, the stock market seemed to give no acknowledgement whatsoever to the real world, to the actual state of the nation. And man, things ain't great. It is a beautiful day today. Photosynthesis still works. It's not too hot. It's not cold. It'll get nice and cool tonight, but only cool enough that I can feel good sleeping next to an open window with a comforter over me. It's going to be great. But in terms of, political systems, economic systems, and the vile, bitter hatred that Red Tribe and Blue Tribe feel towards one another, we're not in a great spot. And we're coming up on an election, and I know some of you have heard me say this a little too often, but some of you haven't. I've really been okay with, I didn't want him to be president. I didn't vote for him. I was dismayed the day that it happened. I stayed up late and took in all those late results. I was sure Hillary Clinton was going to win, and I wasn't happy about it. I didn't want Hillary Clinton to be the president, and I didn't want Donald Trump to be the president. All things, had you asked me before COVID-19, before the pandemic, before the response to it, who would you rather have won the 2016 election? I would have said Donald Trump. Not even close. Now, it's like I just have to reject the question. It's like they're both absolutely unacceptable choices to me at this point. And, Donald Trump has just been the worst since COVID-19. I know a lot of you think he's been the worst since you knew who he was. Since you heard he was running, he was the worst. I don't agree. I actually like his trade policies. But the anti-intellectualism, the just relentless egoism, the fact that he can't consider whether he's going to say something as soon as it occurs to him, he's got to say it. Now, granted, he must proofread his tweets because, Covfefe aside, I send out a lot more typoed tweets than Trump does. He either has somebody, proofread them, or he's pretty good, at just spelling things right, except for Covfefe. But now we're coming into the election season where Joe Biden is just staying out of sight. He's staying alive. And that's all he has to do. And Trump has just pissed away such a golden opportunity. Haha, golden. He could have been, like Mario Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo, not Mario. Mario's his dad. Andrew Cuomo. He's super popular right now because he just gets up on TV with his, I mean, he's not particularly good looking, but he's got a square jaw. And he looks fairly commanding and even presidential. But his policies have been utter crap. He's really, I mean, his state has been the worst hit, and it was the biggest failure in terms of trying to contain the virus. He's trying to cut Medicaid, in the midst of a pandemic. That's absurd. But the bar is so low right now. If you can just get on camera and have a bearing of authority about you, seem sort of calm, your voice doesn't break, and you don't just let word salad flow out of your mouth, you're commanding and presidential, given the other options. Because Donald Trump, verbal diarrhea, whatever comes into his head he says, and he has no thought for the future, seemingly. And no ability to think things through, no ability to think, like he has a constitutional, not like the Constitution, but his Constitution, a constitutional inability to ask himself, should I say this? This thought has formed in my head, should I speak it? Should I let the words come out? He can't seem to ask himself that question. And he's just clueless on anything having to do with science or medicine. So while I was okay basically with him letting Robert Lighthizer go and, play tough with China, the fact that he was willing to use tear gas and rubber bullets to clear a path through peaceful protesters so he could walk across the street from the White House to a church and hold up a Bible, not read from it, not quote from it, not even make reference to it, but just hold it while standing in front of a church. Fuck that guy. I have no use for that at all. And now, it's all over right-wing news, this pathetic little thing going on in Capitol Hill in Seattle. I mean, not pathetic in that it shouldn't be done or that it's not meaningful or symbolic, but in terms of, the disruption that it's causing. I mean, given that we're supposed to be in a pandemic lockdown anyway, there shouldn't really be much going on to disrupt. Except that, do you feel like we're still in a lockdown? Because I don't. I don't feel like we're in a lockdown. It's like the riots and the protests, they basically, closed the door on the whole possibility of, hey, let's all stay home and contain this virus. It's like you hated it when people in Missouri went to a pool party, but hey, there's a riot, hey, there's a protest, let's go, let's gather. So it really seems like the lockdown, it came too late, it was implemented unevenly, and now people are just sick of it. And if there's anything else you'd rather do, and for most people, if you aren't my kids, sitting at home and staring at a computer screen all day, every day, and never going out is not your idea of paradise. The lockdown has failed. I didn't know that's what I was going to talk about when I sat down here. I just wanted to check in and say hello, but that's the title of the goddamn video at this point. Trucks are too loud, young men are stupid, and the lockdown has failed. Go with God, young man. All right, I'm going to leave you with a genuine call to action. I do a comic strip, right? Have you read it? If not, please do. If you read it regularly, I mean, if you're like somebody who wrote to me recently and said, it's frustrating that it only comes out once a week, because really it's just like one page in a comic book, each week. If you're frustrated that it doesn't come out more often, or, if you're just following it and you want to acknowledge that you're following it, I get paid to do this thing. It's not my intellectual property, even though I mostly created it. Other people have had a hand in it here and there, but it's mostly me. The ongoing story that I'm trying to tell with it is slow in coming out, and the person who pays the bills, I think, is getting impatient with it. And to the point where we're going to be shifting the emphasis from creating, furthering the story to creating, click-worthy, share-worthy, single package, small package, meme type content. So if you like the ongoing storyline, one, share links to it. But even more importantly, post comments to the Geb website, geb.io, gebb.io. Most of the feedback that I get from it comes to me in emails, or it comes in through channels that the person paying the bills doesn't see. If you really want to support the project and help me continue to get paid to write and draw comics, which I really appreciate it, please post comments about the content of the strip on the website. That would really help me out. I'd very much appreciate it. All right. With that, I think this mic is probably filtering out, to some degree anyway, the noise of the loud trucks and motorcycles, which irritates the living crap out of me. You're probably not hearing it as much as I am. Somebody sitting right next to me who isn't as sensitive to it probably wouldn't hear it as much as I do. But anyway, so it goes. I know it's been a while. I keep meaning to actually sit down and write a script for a video. For some people, it's weird. I'm trying to say goodbye, but there are people that I hear from who are just commenting on the stuff that I record, which is just seat of the pants stuff like this. And they'll send me 3,000 and 4,000 word emails, which would be great scripts. I mean, I just can't bring myself to sit down and write 2,500 words, which is my standard length for a blog post or something, is 2,000 to 3,000 words. Blue Tribers can't understand how somebody can make gun ownership part of their identity. I can understand that. I get that. And I know there's a point of view where it makes sense that, you should take a normal car and put a lot of money into it and modify it so that it makes a shit ton of noise. I don't pine for the collapse. I don't. But if it comes, I will take the occasional moment to appreciate the silence. I'll talk to you again soon. Stay well.